welcome to a special edition of Five Stones Podcast. As you know, I'm Raymond Modslin. I am one of the hosts, along with two of our other hosts are here today.
Yeah, greetings. I'm Colin Haggard.
I'm Joe Trester, the real estate advocate.
Yes. So with us today, we have managed to find a fourth seat that we have been talking about. And with us, we actually have a very esteemed guest today. Mr. Craig Haggard is here, and he is an Indiana State Representative.
See, I'm convinced that at the federal level in Congress, I don't think there's really that much debate or anything anymore. It's more of a, you got 5 minutes, here's your grandstand, you get 5 minutes, here's your grandstand.
What I hate that was say, like the budget. So the budget, the biggest problem federally is this, it's supposed to be 12 appropriation bills,
Yes.
right? And now it's turned into this omnibus. And oh, by the way, it's like with this the border deal, you know, that they're screaming that we can't protect the border without this bill, which is a bunch of crap, I'll say that. But they were like, okay, yeah, we worked 8 months on this thing. Here it is. You have 8 hours to read all 1,000 pages and vote on it. You know, and it's unrealistic. The omnibus bill is unrealistic. You're just asking for stuff to be shoved into that bill. You know, and talking about billions in waste probably because of that process alone. Because you can't say, well, I like these two, but the others stink. Let's go ahead and pass these so we can keep things moving.
Yeah, no line item veto.
Yeah, well, I'm a line item veto guy. I wish they had it.
Oh, yeah.
But
Speaker Johnson just kind of brought this all to light. I don't think the public realized, and it must be a tough nut to crack to get that done the right way, because even almost he brought it up, and then it seems like they caved again in many ways.
Yeah.
So the dissenting vote was cast by Lonnie Randolph of District 2, Senate District 2.
Oh, if that's the senator, I didn't.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the House. Like,
House side,
we passed unanimously. I thought that's what I was
Yes.
like. I don't remember that.
You had some abstentions
Senate
because they weren't
46.
there, but the
That
Senate,
makes
there was
sense.
only, between both sides, there was only one nay.
So at
Senator
the
Lonnie Randolph.
state level, is there debate and honest debate and
Oh yeah.
compromise?
And the crazy thing is most of that debate is done in committees and pre-committee and in caucus and in places that you don't see. I mean, we'll just be honest. It's just because I don't know that we could ever get anything done if we didn't work these things out ahead of time.
Golf courses.
No, not quite that. But we do work with both sides. I mean, and one that I'll just say the debate behind the scenes and the deals going on behind the scenes on this Blue Line bill, which was Aaron Freeman's bill.
Yeah.
It was probably more behind the scenes, but that was both sides. It wasn't, you know, and it was with the Indigo and the county and the Democrat senator Blake Johnson, who's a Democratic state representative, who's a wonderful, awesome individual. I would work with him on it. I really would. He really is a good guy. So I'll give Blake kudos all day long with him. Now we don't vote the same a lot, I'll just admit, but he's a good guy. He's one you can sit down and have a real conversation and not this all or nothing and screaming and stuff like that.
We just recently did a podcast where we talked about that, where we invited people into this, what we're calling the fourth chair, and we literally told them, hey, you know, if you want to come in and dissent with us, that's fine. We can still be civil about it. But it seems like here lately now, a lot of the other side is like, well, if you don't agree with me, you're wrong, and I'm just going to scream at you and yell at you and can't even, you know, have a conversation.
Well, we have that side in our own party that is, and it's, I always say this, that I have an easier time dealing with the Democrats because I know where they stand.
Yeah.
Not necessarily agreeing with them. I would say about 90% of stuff we actually agree of the outcome. Our ways of getting there are very different, right? And so I can deal with that, and I know where they're going to disagree, and it's just kind of known. And you'll find those anomalies that you can work with folks. But then you have folks now, because you have a lot of angry people, and justifiably angry, that then get sucked into, I always like to say, like terrorist organizations. My former career, we had briefings on how do they make young terrorists? Well, they find really angry and justifiably in their own way, in their own situation, young men usually, and then these groups bring them into, I'll call them the cult or whatever. And because the leaders of these terrorist organizations, the others, they're not the ones out there blowing themselves up. And just like these leaders here, the radical, what might say, far right-wing groups aren't blowing themselves up. They try to recruit people to blow themselves up on the floor and do the roll call this or that, and they'll call at the last minute. Here's my thing, put it in exactly. Or if you don't do this, I've had this many times. If you don't do what I say, we're gonna go against you. So that's within our own party, and that's a very frustrating thing to me.
Yeah.
And I talk about that a lot because I've talked to a lot of these groups and say, guys, because I had the Birch Society rank me the most constitutional conservative voter in the Indiana State House out of everybody. And so these groups like me because we believe the same. But one of my big conversations with them is, guys, quit fighting each other. I get it. We're not going to agree on everything, but we agree like on 99% of everything. And you can't get legislation passed by burning the place down. And so you need to be conservative and effective. I said, I compromise not on my beliefs, but only how far I get. I said, I'll keep my foundation, but if anybody knows, our Constitution was written and designed to make us compromise. That's just how it was written, which I think is a great document. And it's a dead document. Most people know what that means because you have the left side thinks it's a living document, it should change and things like that. But I talk to them a lot about, guys, we need to be able to compromise and talk, not your belief system, not what your core values are, never do that, but just, you're not always going to be able to get here. We need to say, we won this battle, now next year let's get it to here, then get it to here, get it to here.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't have a lot of, I believe, federally.
So before we get too far,
Sorry, we're getting off track.
no, that's fine. I just want to go back. If someone has or thinks they're a victim of this title jumping, what's the best?
The best way is go on the state attorney general's website. They actually have where you can then file something, put in there, and kind of like I can't remember what it's called, like a case file. Put in, here's what your problem, here's my name, and they'll look into that. I'll tell you right now, Craig Haggard, call me. Go on my website. I have an info. There's an email info that doesn't go to a staff member, that actually goes to my home computer, and I answer all those. But if you have an issue, seriously, call me. HoosiersForHaggard.com. Get on my site, and I will direct you. That's one of the great parts of my job with constituents. The laws are hard to get passed, but constituent help, I can get those folks to the right people. Or the Attorney General's website is where you're going to go.
So even if they're not in your district, they can still get it, and you can
I
get
represent
them to
the state
right.
of Indiana as far as I'm concerned. I don't care if you're in Lake County or in Evansville or you're out near the casinos near Cincinnati. If you need help, I can get you to the right
We
people.
actually have listeners in multiple states too.
Okay.
So if there's somebody that's not in the state of Indiana, I am sure that Craig sounds like he's more than willing to maybe even direct you to your state.
Oh, 100%.
To see if that state has started this process or maybe is already ongoing and they don't know it yet.
Well, the other thing I would suggest is every state virtually has a land title association. So if you just Google, if you're in Kansas Land Title Association, if you Google it, you'll find information and you can contact them directly. Because if the Indiana Land Title Association is championing this issue and sees a problem, they're going to see it in other states as well.
Well, and it came from Georgia, so that,
yes.
And you and I were just on the phone today with the Nebraska Land Title Association.
And we deal with a lot of associations like ALEC, the legislative folks that are more conservative leaning, but they represent all states, and they have a council. Then they'll go, hey, we'll find legislation in that state. We'll give you model legislation from Florida, Georgia, Kansas, whatever. And and one of my big bills that the Land and Title Association realtors are really interested in, and they want a seat at the table. There was a little bit of my language in Kendall Culp's bill this year about not allowing the foreign adversaries to buy land, farmland, and then 10 miles around the military installations. And there was already something about...
But TikTok's okay, right?
Yeah, we just
we can talk about that too, but my bill next year is actually very expanded on that. And actually I wrote it for this year. It was kind of more expansive than they wanted to deal with on a short session. So I have a working group that started that involves the chairman of our judicial, 2 individuals from Senate Judicial, AG's office, Military Department of Indiana. I'm going to invite whatever governor candidate wins the primary, their staff to this meeting, and it involves not only foreign agent registration with the Secretary of State's office of those business entities, so they have to legally say, I'm representing a person from this bad list. That bad list is generated federally, and it's usually, and it can change around, but it's the CCP, China, North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, Russia. Those are your main guys. And then by Indiana code, at least in mine, the governor can say, hey, something broke out with whatever this country, and we can then designate those companies. And so right now, you look, it's how do you know who represents? You could have, Bob's American LLC, which is just a lawyer who's working for
Shell.
Well,
Xi Jinping or
there's a
something.
lot of deception involved in the business worlds that are sponsored.
Or they always say, go to Delaware, get your
Right.
LLC out of Delaware. What my bill's going to say is, if you do, no matter where your LLC is from, if you do business in the state of Indiana, you'll have to have this registration with our Secretary of State's office that says, and that way you have an avenue to go after them if you do find out that they're not.
I think Florida has that already.
Yeah, so we're modeling some of our legislation off of Florida and Arkansas right now, because Arkansas has the divesting now. Because our laws are a little bit different, I think they first looked at it, called it a judicial foreclosure. But then there's some other stuff, and land and title and realtors are concerned with two big issues with this. They don't want anybody's land to be in this limbo forever kind of thing, which makes sense. And so I know we addressed that in the current bill that went through. It's not been signed yet, so we'll see where that goes. And then what is the and then the other issue was the Fair Housing Act or whatever. They don't want who asked.
What can you?
Where are you from? We
Yeah.
can't ask that kind of stuff. Or are you of this whatever? And so we're dealing with those things to make sure, because we also understand, and I understand too, that this is not an anti-Chinese person event. This is an anti-CCP. And I actually have Chinese groups where I've already spoken with and working with that are anti-CCP, because the CCP is an enemy of the Chinese people.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
people in the government are.
Yeah, two very different things. I've
Yep.
been serving all over the world, and I did operations in Operation Allied Force with NATO, with former Soviet countries, and you start to quickly learn that. And then my daughter is adopted from Russia, and anyway, I've spent some time in these countries. Find out the people generally are pretty awesome people that still want those same things, and it's the leadership. It's those scumbag politicians like myself or whatever. All those people. It's all those people.
Present company excluded.
Excluded, of course.
Excluded.
I'm awesome, but no, it is, and so in generally it's tough to separate those folks, right? And not to go into the whole Ukraine thing, but
Well, I think it's
take
tough
that leadership compared to the people.
For a lot of people in our mind to think that China's China,
Yeah.
and everybody's the scumbag, and because that's what we're told.
Yeah,
So but you've got more practical experience by going, Chinese person's different than the CCP.
Well, look at everybody's heard of Shenyang, right? The dancing troupe, and you see it at the
Yeah.
malls,
Yeah.
at the home shows, and so my wife drugged me to that event last year, and because my wife's a professional opera singer, and she loves the arts and all this kind of stuff. And so, because I love my wife, I said, sure, but I drug a buddy of mine and his wife, so he'd have to suffer through it.
If I'm suffering, you're suffering.
But they did serve, drinks at I think that was at Clues Hall. But
Yeah.
anyway, so we go in there, but what was crazy to learn is that whole show is around anti-CCP stuff. It's actually a very, very political dance show where they're representing people being taken, put into camps, stealing of organs. I mean, just this whole thing is in that, and then they actually speak about it at the end. So it is their mission to do these shows for not only the beauty of China, but to raise awareness to what the CCP is doing to their citizens in the world. So it's a very political show. So there are those citizens that have come over here that fight against.
Yeah.
Well, people crave liberty naturally. They crave
Right.
liberty, but generations past have forfeited the way to fight it. I mean, now they've been disarmed. They're already under the thumb, so
Right.
it's tough for them. I think all they have is political protest.
Well, I'm glad, like I said, I still go back, and I'm glad to see that, Craig, you're championing this, and that it is probably something that is a lot more dangerous than people think, because they haven't heard it yet. And I'm glad that there's somebody out there that is looking out for other people, present company included. And
Yeah.
now we say we can know one good politician. All right, once again, remember, hit the bell and the notification. If you've got comments, if you'd like to sit in the fourth chair with us, we encourage that. And once again, I'll make the statement that I made before. Even if you disagree, you can still come and we can still have a civil conversation and figure out why you're wrong. So that's really simple. That we offer that all the time.
Even if you were the only one that voted no on a bill that passed everywhere else,
Yeah.
we'd love to have you on.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good day, man.
Harumph.